HOAs love controlling everything, but when Karen decided she could ban my security cameras, she messed with the wrong homeowner. I installed a simple security system to protect my home, but Karen, the HOA president, claimed they violated community privacy rules. She demanded I take them down immediately or face daily fines. But instead of backing down, I found a loophole that not only let me keep my cameras up, but to take revenge on Karen. Keep watching to find out what the loophole was. If you enjoy this video, we would deeply appreciate if you would like this video. Also, remember to subscribe for more videos about crazy Karens. When my wife and I moved into Oak Ridge Meadows, we thought we had found the perfect home. The streets were quiet, the houses were well kept, and the neighborhood seemed safe. At first, the HOA seemed harmless enough. They sent out friendly newsletters, held neighborhood events, and mostly just reminded people about trash pickup days. Then I met Karen. Karen wasn't just a board member. She was a dictator in disguise. She had opinions on everything and treated the neighborhood like her personal kingdom. She had fined my neighbor, Mark, $200 because his lawn decorations clashed with the aesthetic. Another resident had been forced to repaint his front door because the shade of blue was too bold. It didn't take long for me to land on her radar. It started with a package theft. One morning, my wife went outside to grab a delivery, only to find the box was gone. At first, we thought it was a mix-up, but after checking with the neighbors, it became clear someone had stolen it. That was enough for me. I ordered 2 security cameras, one for the front porch and another for the driveway. They were small, subtle, and motion-activated. They didn't face anyone else's property, just my own. 2 days later, they were installed and running. And that's when I got my first HOA violation letter. Notice of violation. Your property has been found in violation of the Oak Ridge Meadows HOA privacy policy. Unauthorized surveillance equipment is not permitted as it may infringe on neighbor privacy. Cameras must be removed immediately to avoid further penalties. I stared at the letter, completely dumbfounded. Was this a joke? I checked the HOA rulebook. Nowhere did it ban security cameras. I wasn't about to let Karen dictate my home security. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I ignored the letter. Big mistake. The next morning, Karen was on my porch. She stood there, arms crossed, staring directly at the front camera. I opened the door. "Can I help you?" She gestured at the camera. "This needs to come down immediately." I folded my arms. "No, it doesn't." Her eye twitched. "Your cameras are an invasion of privacy. The HOA does not allow homeowners to monitor other residents." I frowned. "Karen, these cameras only record my property. They don't even face anyone else's house." She huffed. "That doesn't matter. It makes people uncomfortable." I smirked. "Who exactly?" She hesitated. "I've received complaints." "From who?" Her mouth opened and closed. She had nothing. I shook my head. "Karen, I installed these because someone stole a package off my porch. They're for security. They're not coming down." Her fake smile disappeared. "Then you'll be fined $50 a day until they are removed." I clenched my jaw. "You can try." She turned on her heel and stormed off. That night, I received another violation notice. I expected Karen to harass me with fines, but I didn't expect her to try and remove the cameras herself. And the best part, she got caught on camera. The next morning, I checked my security camera footage out of curiosity, and there she was, Karen, at 2:37 a.m., creeping onto my porch. I stared at the screen, my coffee mug frozen halfway to my lips. She was dressed in black, trying to look inconspicuous, but failing miserably. Her bright blonde bob stuck out in the glow of my porch light. In the footage, she reached up, trying to unscrew the camera from the wall. It didn't budge. She huffed in frustration, glancing around nervously. Then she pulled out a piece of paper and taped it directly over the camera lens. I paused the footage. My blood was boiling. Karen had just trespassed onto my property and physically tampered with my security system. And the best part, she got caught doing it. I immediately called Mark, my next-door neighbor, and told him to come over. When he saw the footage, his jaw dropped. "No way," he muttered. "She actually..." Oh yeah, I said, replaying the part where she stuck the paper over the lens. We burst out laughing. She really thinks that's going to stop a security camera? Mark wheezed. She's about to find out just how wrong she is. I grabbed my phone and dialed the non-emergency police number. A few minutes later, I was explaining the situation to an officer on the line. Wait, the cop said, you're telling me your HOA president broke onto your porch and tried to remove your security cameras? That's exactly what I'm telling you. There was a long pause. Then he chuckled. Well, that's a first. I sent them the security footage, and the officer assured me they would be paying Karen a visit. That afternoon, I sat on my porch waiting. And sure enough, at exactly 3:15 p.m., a police cruiser pulled up in front of Karen's house. I watched as two officers got out and knocked on her door. A moment later, Karen appeared, fake smile fully activated. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I saw Karen's expression shift from confusion to pure panic as one of the officers held up a printed photo of her for my security footage. She started gesturing wildly, her mouth moving a mile a minute. The officer cut her off, pointing toward my house. Karen's face turned bright red. Then she did something that made me burst out laughing. She pointed at me, like a child tattling on a classmate. The officer shook his head, said something, and then Karen's arms dropped to her sides. She looked completely defeated. The officers handed her a citation, spoke a little longer, then left. Not even 5 minutes later, she was marching toward my house. I stood up, arms crossed, waiting. She stormed up my driveway, furious. How dare you, she screeched. I smirked. How dare I what, Karen? You called the police on me. I shrugged. Well, you broke onto my porch and tampered with my property. Her face twitched. That was an official HOA inspection, she shrieked. I laughed in her face. At 2:30 in the morning? Yeah, right. She huffed, then shoved the police citation in my face. This is harassment. I'm filing a formal complaint against you. Go ahead, I said, still grinning. But first, you might want to check your email. She frowned. What? I pulled out my phone. The HOA board just sent out a neighborhood-wide email. I read it aloud for her. Dear residents, due to a recent incident, we want to remind everyone that HOA board members do not have the authority to enter private property without permission. Any violations of this policy will result in immediate removal from the board. Karen's eyes widened. The board is voting tonight on whether you should be removed permanently. She staggered back like I had just punched her in the stomach. I leaned in. Something tells me you're not going to win this one. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Then, without another word, she stormed off. But what she did next at the HOA meeting, that was when the real meltdown happened. That evening, I arrived at the HOA board meeting, and it was already packed. Word had spread fast about Karen's late-night trespassing stunt. Neighbors who usually skipped meetings had shown up just to see what would happen. Karen was already there, sitting at the front, looking like she had just swallowed a lemon. Greg, the HOA vice president, cleared his throat. All right, before we begin tonight's agenda, we need to address an urgent matter regarding board member conduct. Karen sat up straighter, trying to act composed. Greg continued, it has come to our attention that a certain board member was caught on camera trespassing on a resident's property and attempting to remove security equipment. The crowd murmured. Karen shot to her feet. I was doing an official inspection. Greg sighed. Karen, security footage shows you sneaking onto the property at 2:30 a.m. It was a necessary action, she snapped. His cameras were a violation of HOA rules. Linda, another board member, spoke up. Karen, there's nothing in the HOA bylaws about banning security cameras. Karen froze. Actually, Linda continued, I checked our records. You approved a resident's request for a doorbell camera last year. A few people in the audience laughed. Karen's face turned beet red. That was different. Greg shook his head. No, it wasn't. You've been making up rules, harassing homeowners, and now you've committed a crime. Karen threw her hands in the air. I was protecting the community. Mark, my neighbor, called out from the back. Yeah, Karen. By trespassing at night and messing with people's security cameras? Sounds real protective. The room erupted in laughter. Karen's hands clenched into fists. I demand that this be dismissed. Greg ignored her. As per HOA regulations, any board member found violating homeowner rights is subject to immediate removal by majority vote. Karen whipped around, looking at the other board members. You can't do this. I have served this community for 6 years. Linda folded her arms. Then you should have known better. Karen looked desperate now. Vote against this, she barked at the crowd. If I go, this neighborhood will fall apart. But nobody was on her side. Greg raised his hand. All in favor of removing Karen from the HOA board permanently. Every single hand went up. Even one of Karen's usual allies hesitated, then raised his hand too. Karen staggered back like she had been physically struck. Her mouth opened, then closed. Then she did the most Karen thing imaginable. She grabbed a stack of HOA papers from the table and flung them into the air. This is a disgrace, she shrieked. You'll all regret this. Then she stormed out of the meeting room. The second the door slammed shut, the room burst into applause. I leaned over to Mark and grinned. Well, that was fun. He laughed. Dude, you just speed ran a revenge again. I thought that was the end of it. But Karen wasn't done yet, because 2 nights later, my security cameras caught her sneaking back. And this time, she was holding a pair of wire cutters. 2 nights later, at 1:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected, driveway camera. I was half asleep, but when I saw the live feed, I shot straight up. There she was, Karen, dressed in all black, holding a pair of wire cutters. My heart started pounding. She crept toward my security camera, her face twisted in frustration. I watched as she reached up, preparing to cut the power cord. I hit the talk button on my camera's speaker. Hey, Karen, smile for the police. She jerked back in shock, whipping around like a deer in headlights. Then she bolted. I jumped out of bed, grabbed my phone, and called the cops. Yeah, I need officers here immediately. I have live security footage of someone attempting to vandalize my property. Do you have an ID on the suspect? Oh yeah, I said, grinning. It's my ex-HOA president. 15 minutes later, 2 patrol cars rolled onto my street, lights flashing. Karen had tried to run home, but I had video evidence of her little stunt. A cop knocked on her door. At first, she didn't answer. Then, after a minute, the door creaked open. Karen appeared, wrapped in a bathrobe, acting like she had just been woken up. What seems to be the problem, officer? She asked sweetly. The officer wasn't buying it. Ma'am, we have a recorded report of you attempting to tamper with a homeowner's security system. Karen laughed. Oh, that's ridiculous. I've been in bed all night. I stepped forward, phone in hand. Really? Because my security cameras say otherwise. Her smugness vanished. I played the footage of her creeping into my yard with wire cutters. Karen's face drained of color. The officer turned back to her. Ma'am, please turn around and place your hands behind your back. Karen flinched. What? No. You can't do this. This is criminal trespassing and attempted vandalism. You have the right to remain silent. Karen shrieked. This is my neighborhood. I was trying to protect it. The officer ignored her, snapping the handcuffs on. Karen thrashed. You're all going to pay for this, she screeched. You will see. I folded my arms. Karen, the only thing I see is you going to jail. The next morning, the entire neighborhood was buzzing. Karen had been booked for trespassing and attempted destruction of property. The HOA board sent out an official statement. Effective immediately, Karen is permanently banned from all HOA meetings and decisions. Any harassment of residents will result in further legal action. And the best part, Karen put her house up for sale that same week. By the end of the month, she was gone. And my security cameras, they were still up with twice as many installed. That's how I doubled my security cameras and got my HOA president arrested in the process. What do you think? Did Karen get what she deserved? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever had a crazy HOA experience, I want to hear it. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more insane HOA horror stories.